I mean, NATO's been the cornerstone of our defence policy for decades. Is it an exaggeration to say that appears to be coming to an end? Because to me, the golden thread through all of this, if it is a golden thread, is Trump's contempt for multilateral institutions. He doesn't have any respect for the UN, pulled out of the WHO, doesn't have much time for NATO, doesn't see why the US should be responsible for helping European countries, wants Europe to take care of itself, while himself, Putin and China can maybe cut deals amongst themselves. He doesn't seem to be a reliable partner for European countries.
No, I think that's exactly correct. And this shouldn't really surprise us. Donald Trump's a narcissist. He's clearly wanted Zelensky to come into the Oval Office and grovel for something, thank Donald Trump for all his support, only for Donald Trump to then tell him, and by the way, we're pulling the rug from under you. Zelensky, to his credit, wasn't willing to accept that. He pushed back, and we had the disgraceful scenes that played out on TV. I do think that behind all of that, you have to look at this and just wonder whether there isn't the potential for a bit of a silver lining in that. As much as there's a little positive that can be said about Donald Trump, if the eventual outcome here is that you do get a peace deal, which, and I think as much as it might be unpalatable, a peace deal that involves potentially Ukraine needing to cede some land, but that there is ultimately an end to the killing in the battlefield and some sort of security guarantee for whatever is left of Ukraine, then that's potentially a good thing. Certainly it's a good thing if people stop getting killed in the battlefield. The problem here seems to be that Donald Trump's position is that he would rather that Ukraine made all the concessions than that Russia made
and also
none.
Not be around the table when the deal is being cut.
Yeah. So this is now. I mean, it does appear when you look at this letter that Trump says he received from Zelensky, almost if the letter is the same as the social media statement that Zelensky made, it reads like something from a man with a gun to his head. And I think you're quite the rumours that I was hearing yesterday was that Donald Trump was ready, literally in his address last night, to say America is leaving NATO. So I think it's definitely not a hyperbole to suggest that NATO is in huge trouble and could potentially be coming to an end. That America's Donald Trump stated many times that it's about putting America first. There was an interesting clip that I think the Express ran where he was asked about the election in Germany, and he completely dismissed the question. I don't care about Germany, I've got my own problems, and that kind of sums up his attitude to international relations in general. He's not particularly into war, but he's not particularly into alliances either. He wants it all to be about America. He wants trade barriers. He wants to bring jobs back to America, and to hell with anyone that disagrees with that or that believes that there's a bigger picture that needs to be taken into account. So
I think it's pretty obscene as well that he expected Zelensky to come to Washington and be grateful, having called him a dictator, earlier in the month, which is completely false. And have you also noticed that he keeps having swipes at Zelensky while never criticising Putin at all?
But this is, I kind of come back to it. You've got to, I know you shouldn't have to, but I think you need to kind of disregard some of the stuff he says because it's just so outlandish, and I don't even think he kind of believes it. Ultimately, Trump thinks that Putin is the key to ending this war, not Zelensky. And I guess in a way, he's correct. I mean, I don't think we should be dealing with Putin, but it's very difficult to see how this war ends without some concession to Putin. I think as well, I'd make a point from an American defence, an American military point of view. Europe is probably no longer the priority. We've got talk of a Chinese invasion of Taiwan, and that's a much more, potent problem for America, given America's interest in the Pacific. And I'm wondering if Trump's eager to bring this to an end before he maybe needs to deal with something else in the Pacific. And from Trump's point of view, I can maybe understand why he sees Putin as the key to ending this rather than Zelensky, because ultimately Putin is in charge of one of the world's three superpowers, maybe an outdated kind of term, but one of the the powers in the region, whereas Zelensky's he said that they were alone. They're not alone in terms of support, but in terms of fighting this war, they are alone, and they're not a small country, but they're a small country compared to Russia. So I don't think he really believes Zelensky's a dictator, but I think he sees the way it's a negotiation. Everything's a negotiation. Everything's a business deal, and he thinks the best way to get Putin on side is to not butter up to him, I suppose. Maybe the best way to get Zelensky on side is to rile him up.